My name is Ghostboy259 and I played Warriors Abyss. I've been a lifelong fan of the Dynasty Warriors franchise, but admittedly I haven't played as much of it as I'd like to. There's not really a great way to play 5 anymore, which I definitely spent the most time playing with Extreme Legends and Empires, and while I really enjoyed 8 Empires, it's a very long commitment to finish off a map, and it gets to a point where it's either way too easy or way too grindy, and you just end up playing the same level 100 times, and I just don't have that kind of time to commit to the game anymore. I couldn't justify buying Dynasty Warriors Origins at its current price, mostly because I have a hard time doing anything but Empires mode these days, but if it ever gets significantly cheaper, I really want to try it out because I did try the demo and I thought it was great. But when I saw the trailer for Warriors Abyss, I had some high hopes. In theory, the formula for Dynasty Warriors works perfectly as a roguelike game, but I was hesitant because it had to feel like Dynasty Warriors or it just wouldn't work. When I finally got the chance to pick up the game on sale, I was super excited to find that it did indeed feel exactly like Dynasty Warriors. I played as Guan Yu, my favorite, and it felt exactly like Guan Yu should, and from that moment on, I kinda fell in love with the game. I didn't stream this game, but if you want to watch me stream games that often get turned into videos, you can follow me at twitch.tv/ghostboy259. Feel free to subscribe while you're here. I try to upload every week of a game that you've maybe never heard of, and I have a Patreon at patreon.com/realityescape if you want to help support the channel. All the links can be found at realityescape.ca. There is a loose plot to this game. More or less, the king of the underworld needs you to slay some demons and off you go. He chimes in occasionally, he's very flirty with you, which is also weird because they specifically call out how young he looks, and after a while I just started skipping most of it. In a run, there are 4 levels of hell that the player has to go through, each containing 8 stages, and then you'll be met with 3 boss fights back to back to back. Beat that and you win the run. It is incredibly easy to beat a run on the easiest difficulty. I think I did it on my 3rd ever run, and if there's anything that this game really struggles with, it's that. Unless you have the drive to keep going to harder difficulties and grinding out every character like myself, it will eventually fall a bit flat. At the end of each stage of hell, you will have a moment to recoup and make some decisions. You'll have 3 options in front of you, sometimes more if you have a certain ability, and this will let you pick your next reward, so to speak. The most common is forming an alliance with an officer, or a hero, or a general, whatever you want to call it. Alliances are the core of this game, as not only can you summon them by using certain combos as seen by this little bar at the bottom of the screen, but they also each have attributes and abilities, and these are the key to unlocking a lot of things for your run. There are 6 abilities and 5 attributes in this game, and each has its own branches of effects. For attributes, you have Vigor, Skill, Strength, Speed, Wisdom, and Charm, and for the attributes, you have Fire, Ice, Wind, Lightning, and Slay. Queen. And yes, Slay sounds like a bit of an outlier. It's basically like poison, but ultimately all 11 of these emblems, as they're called in the game, work more or less the same. Each officer will have 1 to 4 attributes, and once you ally yourself with them, you gain those. Through levels 1 to 8, and then after that, every 2 levels until you hit 18, you will unlock new things based on your emblems. Vigor is focused on attack and range, Skill gives you better attack speed and also unlocks all of your combos since you start off with only 4 instead of 6, and you need your 5th and 6th in order to summon your 5th and 6th allied officer. Strength is pretty much all about resistance and defense. Speed gives you a longer dodge, a shorter cooldown on that, and even potentially more dodges. Wisdom is all about filling your Muso gauge, and you can actually get 2 if you max this out. Charisma is all about summoning and assembly cooldowns, which we'll get into in a bit. Flame is fire damage, ice, wind, and shock are all different ways of crowd control, like freezing or shocking or stunning. and Slayer is just like poison, it's bleeding damage over time. Once you have the right amount of officers, you can change the formation of them before advancing. The formation is not just the order in which the officers come in, it's a general bonus based off of the things you've collected. You'll only start the run with one, you have to buy them later in stages, and sometimes they can just be generic, like increasing your Musou attack percentage, but it can also be based off of an attribute. So if you're raking up fire, and then there's one that does additional damage for each fire emblem, it makes sense to use that one. Each officer also has special techniques and special summoning abilities, like there are some that summon even more officers if requirements are met, and you can customize all of this to have your setup be exactly how you want, but I generally just do the auto recommend and it turns out okay. If you want to deep dive and customize it all, you can, but recommend is pretty much spot on 99% of the time. Allied officers have summon skills, which determines what kind of attack they'll use when you summon them, but I generally don't really pay a whole lot of attention to this. And when you are allying with an officer and you see a golden outline, that means you'll be able to unlock their unique tactic. For example, Guan Yu's unique tactic requires recruiting the other 4 generals who have the 5 Shoe Tigers tag, and when he has this, it will allow you to summon all of them when you summon him. Liu Bei's unique tactic is Oath in the Peach Garden, which increases the attack for him, Zheng Fei, and Guan Yu, and it requires the other 2 to activate it. There are tons of conditions, sometimes it's emblems, sometimes it's a certain amount of tags or specific officers or a combo of both. Some are definitely better than others, but the more combos you can collect, the better off you'll be, and this is where you really need to pay attention to formations and why I really recommend just going with the recommended one, since it will always put the best one that you have completed out first. By the end of a run, it's not really crazy to have over 30 officers or so chances are you will fulfill more than one. And let's say you have Guan Yu, but the auto formation isn't putting him in some cases, it actually is good to go back and put him in because his attack summons multiple people. But if he's not put in, there's generally a reason the game does that, so it's always worth looking at the unique tactics. And later on, there are certain ways that you can just spam summons over and over and over again, and it becomes a huge part of the late game. Throughout a run, you'll collect Tears of Blood and Karma Embers. Tears of Blood is exclusive to that specific run. It's basically like your currency. Occasionally, one of your choices will be a shop where you can spend the tears in order to unlock new formations or more heroes and refill your health or Musou. You won't be able to spend them unless you actively choose to go to a shop at the end of the level, which you won't really want to do unless you have enough tears to spend, but right before the final boss sections, there will be at least one store you spend on. You can recruit up to 4 different officers in the store, so if you think you can afford them, it's definitely better to, and a good formation can make a huge difference as well. But it really depends on how much you have and what your other portals are. Karma Embers are used out of the run and they go towards the Hall of Bonded Souls. The halls are filled with officers to unlock. There's some formations that you still actually have to discover them in runs, but it unlocks that ability, and some upgrades that are a little more general, like more embers and blood per run, or more XP and stuff like that. You'll notice the roster is huge. I think there's close to 100 officers, if not more, since they have all of the samurai characters from the Warriors series that I've never played before. And then there's just some random anime girls. I don't know who some of these people are. There's Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden here, although Ayane is also here, and I know her more from Dead or Alive. I don't actually know if she's in the Ninja Gaiden games. And then there's this white dominatrix lady named Rachel, which, like, alright, hi Rachel, what's up? The only characters I haven't unlocked are the Origins characters, which, as I mentioned, I haven't bought Origins, so you can buy the game to get them, or I think there's a specific DLC pack, but I'm not going to spend money on that when I will eventually buy the game. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds of dollars to spend in costumes and DLC if you want, which is very on brand for this type of game, but Keep in mind it is expensive, and after buying 2 costume packs you will have double the cost of the game. Once you've unlocked everything and everyone, Karma Embers still have a purpose. You can use them to acquire unique weapons for every character, which can also be unlocked during runs, but it's not super common. And these are pretty powerful upgrades for each character that can again range from quite literally anything and everything. You can also transcend characters, which makes them a lot stronger and makes everything better, again including their weapon. And what's really cool is that transcendence is not permanent, so if you want to transcend a character for a run or two and then untranscend them and spend that embers elsewhere, you can do that. And then finally, you can use any leftover embers you have to increase characters' levels up to the nearest 50 mark, meaning you don't have to individually grind every single character to max level if you don't want to. Sometimes during runs, you'll have the choice to grab embers over a new officer or something, but I almost never do it. But I could see maybe going for it if you're in the late stages or still just trying to unlock everything. You'll gather a lot just by playing though, and if you don't want to do that grind, I don't know what to tell you, maybe don't get this game because this combat loop is really the entire thing. Occasionally while going through stages, you'll see missions and danger zones, which are not exclusive from each other, and sometimes you can get both. Danger zones are just harder levels, you'll have more to kill and they are harder to kill, but overall there are more enemies, which means more XP, which means more potential emblems that randomly drop sometimes, so unless you're barely scraping by, it's not too much of a deterrent as much as something you actually kind of want, but again, it depends on what kind of run you're on. Missions play out as normal, but after you're done, you'll have to do some sort of challenge, like kill 300 troops in 45 seconds, or kill this boss unit, or find the real version of these specific units and kill it. I don't know what happens if you don't do it within the time limit, because I played for about 25 hours and I never once failed at any point. And when you use your Muso, time actually freezes until it's completely done, which is fair because sometimes animations take longer, but it also makes it a lot easier. I would assume failing this just kills your run, but I would almost say it's nearly impossible to actually lose a run to this. After the boss fight at the end of each stage, you can get a relic or treasure, of which there are just about 20, and these can sometimes be just positive things like giving you a revive or giving you hero rerolls when you're recruiting officers, but there are sometimes a few that have negative payoffs. These can totally change how you play the game, like there's one where it shortens cooldowns for slot 1, 3, and 5, and thanks to a mechanic we'll get to later, you can essentially endlessly spam all of your summons to attack everyone, and it's very handy. Some characters you play as also get certain bonuses for having certain treasures as well, so make sure to read your character thoroughly to see what that is. This is more or less how the game works. The gameplay is very basic. You have your basic attack, you have your second attack, which is how you use your combos, and at the end of a combo you summon an officer, which you have in that slot. Once the officer is summoned, it will have a slight cooldown, which can get shorter depending on where you put your emblems, and after a few runs, you'll unlock the ability to hit another button, which skips the remainder of the combo and just summons the officer right away, at the cost of making the cooldown take a little bit longer. This might be seen as counterproductive because you might as well do the combos anyways, since you're still attacking and doing damage, but this can greatly speed up the early game, and if you get your cooldowns low enough, you can just spam summons for the entire late game with no cooldown. As per usual with these games, you've got your Muso ability, which charges with damaging and I believe taking damage, although unlike other games, there's no special one for having low HP, which I do miss, but I understand that it would be a lot of unnecessary cutscene stuff to the game, and they already have a few of those. Similarly enough, you've got the assembly ability, which summons all of your officers and increases your damage while they all go out and do their thing, and it also gives you some special moves, including one huge finishing move. In the earlier stages, I almost never use these outside of boss fights, but in later stages, you'll end up spamming these a ton. And if you happen to finish off a stage while using your assembly, it will actually save that bar to where it is, so it doesn't take nearly as long to refill, which is a nice touch. There are glowing enemy attacks, I think mostly done by enemies with names over them, and you'll need to either avoid them or hit the thing doing the attack to stop it. Although the latter of those might be connected to a skill you have to unlock, but I'm not entirely sure. Evading has a cooldown and is connected to the speed emblem. You kind of just ignore it after after a while because you can't really tell where the attack is coming from. I like the evade, although I do miss the ability to jump. Jumping strikes in Dynasty Warriors were always my favorites, especially in 8 where you have a special mid-air Muso, but I get why it doesn't really fit here. Occasionally when you enter new stages, you get memories of the dead, and these are random events that are a lot like something you'd see in Slay the Spire. Sometimes it's an option of 2 things, sometimes it's a percentage of something good and something bad, or just something good and nothing at all. Sometimes it's a trade-off, sometimes if you have a certain amount of emblems, you can get a bonus. These aren't too impactful long-term, they're all designed to be pretty short-term effects, but you do have to take them when you see them, so I do wish they rolled a little bit more with some of the negative ones, so it was more challenging, but I also can see how losing a run to these would be pretty frustrating. I have about 25 hours into this game at the time of making this video. I would probably have a bit more, but as you can imagine, it's a lot of button mashing, and I have a lot of hand pain already since I use them every waking moment for work. But the combat feels good. It feels like a lot of the old Dynasty Warriors games I grew up with, but with far less walking and traveling to find enemies. That's not to say I don't have a few issues with the game, my biggest being that emblems are not labeled, and it is just a weird learning curve that the game doesn't need to have. I don't mind the fist being vigor and the shield being strength, although I can see why some people would. But then why not just have the words there so I don't have to guess? It took longer than I'd like to admit to remember which one was skill, which one was charm, which one was wisdom, because some of these icons are not necessarily the most reflective things they could have taken, and I was just far too stubborn and I did not want to take a screenshot and have a second page open just to identify them. Which again, I stand by the idea that it shouldn't be needed, just allow it so that when I put the cursor over it, it has words. The abilities all have descriptions, which is nice, but sometimes they are just a little bit too vague and hard to understand, especially when you're starting out. It's a game where you kind of learn how things work by playing, but I don't think it's intended to be that. I just think they're not giving you enough information when you're starting. The other issue is that every game mode is pretty much identical. After you win a few runs, you'll get the option to save your file with that build and use it elsewhere, which are the voids of ephemerality and the depths of torment. The void basically gives you 15 minutes and you have to see how long you can go and what you can do with it. And at the end of each wave, you will have to choose between making enemies harder or making the wave limit so there's more enemies to kill. There is a way to get more time while you're playing by killing special boss units, but it's something literally like 5 seconds and completely not worth it. I don't know if it was intended to be longer or not, but you won't really have a lot of luck extending the time on this one. The Depths of Torment is more like a dungeon crawling type thing where you just go deeper and deeper and deeper and see how far you can go. Again, choosing from more negative effects that accumulate over time. It can be very fun and you can keep using the same file over and over again just to grind it out if you want. Your rewards for these are Records of Sin, which you basically can equip to any character before any run of any game type, and these just have some generic effects that are very, very useful, like increasing attack below a certain amount of health, or a bonus for a certain amount of emblems. It's all randomly generated, and sometimes you can find really good ones that help with runs, and if you don't want to keep them, then you can exchange them for more Karma Embers. Lastly, there's the Training Hall, of which there are several modes where you can play the game with a little less RNG. Maybe you're more likely to get heroes with certain emblems, or only get certain people of certain tags or skills. There's a few gimmicky ones where it's easier some ways and harder in others. They mostly unlock Karma Embers, but there's a few special Records of Sin as well, and once you've completed one at a higher level, you don't have to go back and do the easier ones. There are 6 traversal levels of hell to ascend, with the later levels being much more difficult. When you're playing earlier levels, you can discover officers when the time comes, but as the game goes to higher levels, they only really feed you the worst ones, and you have to hopefully get the golden tree and use it in order to get better guys. Also, when you're first playing and officers aren't all unlocked, you'll eventually end up with just locked officers who you can only get one emblem from and nothing else, so unlocking everyone should be a top priority when you first start playing. The problem is that every game mode plays exactly the same. Training Hall doesn't feel any different from the Depths of Torment, which doesn't really feel any different from the base game. And of course, it's a roguelite, so I expect that, But no matter what mode you play, it is the same repetitive gameplay, and of course, Dynasty Warriors isn't exactly known for its diverse array of mechanics. It's hack and slash at its finest, and it's very satisfying slicing through thousands of men at once, but there's nothing that discerns one mode from the next. There's no mode where you can battle other officers or engage in any sort of outpost capturing, which I understand because it's not trying to be the base games, but it just feels like there is a missed opportunity to do a bit more. Ultimately, if you have no desire to max out every character or do anything beyond beating a level 6 run, then this game will give you about 20 hours or so of pretty repetitive gameplay and you'll be done. Now for me and most Dynasty Warriors fans, again, repetitive gameplay is not only nothing new, it's why we're here, and so it's perfect for us. I don't see myself maxing out this game entirely as my hands are not as young as they used to be, but I still do want to max out a lot more than what I've done so far. But there's no incentive or really any reason to do so. It's not even that fun challenging yourself to see how many traversals of hell and depths of torment you can get. There's no leaderboards or anything to really compare to, and so if you are grinding, it is purely just grinding to grind with no payoff, no extra modes, no nothing. If you have seen Dynasty Warriors gameplay and the game has never appealed to you before, I cannot recommend this game to you in good faith. However, if you're a huge fan of the series, if you're like me where you've maxed out every character and gotten their ultimate weapon on an older installment, and you just need something to play while zoning out or listening to a video or something, then I think you'll find plenty to enjoy in this. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a must-play for Dynasty Warriors fans, but I would highly recommend it, and I would at least look at more gameplay and reviews if you're interested. Just know it does not vary much from that. Truthfully, it is not that challenging, and while the game mechanics are deep, the gameplay itself is not. It is a game that is screaming for a huge update with a new mode or new bosses. Maybe you can fight other officers or just something to freshen it up while grinding, but I don't see that on the horizon for this game. It feels like they're done with it. I would also recommend not buying the more expensive versions of the game because it removes a lot of the grind and also a lot of the purpose as well. If you have everything unlocked to start, then you're going to find there's really not that much to do. But if you're looking for a grind, then I hope to see you in hell. And my name is Ghostboy259 and I played Warriors Abyss. Next time, I'll play something else. Thanks for watching.